Hi, this is Francis with a quick run through of some examples of multi-project pipelines that I found to be useful, and maybe you will too. So we have three examples. The first one is sort of a simple A to B example, just showing how one pipeline can trigger activity in another pipeline in another project. So an example of what this might be useful for is a code project that triggers a rebuild of the documentation, for example. So I'm going to go into the code repo here. And by the way, these examples don't actually have any code. They're just CI configuration to keep it really simple. And if we go into the GitLab CI YAML, we can see we have a build job, a test job, and a bridge job. Now, a job can have either a script or a trigger. It can't have both, but and the kind of convention is that to call job with a trigger a bridge job because it's bridging to the other pipeline. That's not a requirement, but that's sort of a convention that I'm following here. And so you can see the trigger keyword with the other project identified here, the branch to use, and strategy depend. Remember, strategy depend is what tells GitLab to hold this job until the downstream job has finished and then finish this job. Now in this particular case, that's a little bit irrelevant because this is the last job anyway in the pipeline. But in other cases, you might have other jobs, other stages following this one in your pipeline. And so I can see if I go to my pipeline view that I've got, if I go into the pipeline, I could see I've got my three stages, build, test, deploy. In my deploy stage is my bridge job. Here's my downstream pipeline. If I click on the arrow, I can see the details of the downstream pipeline, and it's labeled as a multi-project pipeline. Now, what's really cool here is if I open this link, I actually get the downstream pipeline in the downstream project. So now I have switched projects, and that's really important. And in fact, I can click here to go back to the upstream pipeline. So you can navigate back and forth between the downstream and upstream pipelines. But you don't even really need to do that because if you click here on the job, you can actually go directly to the job trace for that particular job in the downstream pipeline. And so you can actually move around directly within the jobs from the master pipeline view. Not sure why that's taking so long to load, but I'm not going to worry about it. All right, the second example is a little bit more complex. It's what I call an orchestrator. So this might be if you have a package of projects, maybe you have 5 or 10 or 100 projects that are all part of the same system or that are somehow related to each other, and where you want to have CI kind of driven and managed across all of those projects in some way. So I like to refer to the project that drives the CI as the orchestrator. Now it's important to recognize that all of your downstream pipelines could still be run independently. And so the orchestrator may have different roles depending on how your system is set up. So I'm going to go into the orchestrator example here, and I'm going to go into the GitLab CI.yaml here. And in this case, I've got 3 stages: build, bridge, and complete. So I'm actually utilizing this strategy depend here because this complete stage will only start after the downstream downstream pipelines rather have completed. And so I have 3 different bridge jobs going to 3 different projects. 2 of them are multi-project pipelines. The third one is actually a parent-child pipeline within this project. So this is showing how we can have multiple bridge jobs to multiple pipelines, and also how we can mix multi-project and parent-child pipelines in the same project. And so this here, this include here, is a GitLab CI YAML file within this project. And but these other ones are GitLab CI in other projects. And so if I go to the pipeline, I can see the 3 downstream pipelines here. I can click on any of them to get detail. Notice how when you click on one of the downstream pipelines, it highlights the bridge job for that. Also notice that the 3 bridge jobs have to complete before the complete job or stage completes. Also notice how the downstream pipelines are labeled as multi-project or child, depending on what kind they are. And as before, we can click through to either the pipeline or the job trace for any of those if we want to see more details about them. So that's an example of kind of an orchestrator that's managing multiple downstream pipelines, some of them multi-project pipelines and some of them parent-child pipelines within the same project. The last example is, I called it versioning, but it's actually really about passing values between pipelines. So you can pass artifacts and you can pass variables from one pipeline to another. In this particular example, it's really the simplest possible example. I've hard-coded a version number variable here. So this is version number 345, as I've called this child job, and then the child pipeline actually outputs the variable. And so if we go into the pipeline view here, and what you can do is you can see here's the downstream pipeline. And if I go in to see the trace output in the downstream job, I can actually see that it's outputting that version number. So I'm in a different project here with data that has been passed from one project to another in the pipeline view. I hope this has been helpful for understanding multi-project pipelines. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.